The 85 Nissan Datsun 720 four-wheel drive here, it's got a little bit of an oil leak going on at the valve cover, so we're going to replace the gasket and the two little half circles that go on each end, so that should get her fixed up. Usually if you've got an oil leak, your valve cover gasket is a good thing to replace first because oil leaks always go down and backwards. If you got one at the front, it can look like it's your rear main seal, just because the oil goes down and backwards as you drive along. So first step on an old rig is always to replace your valve cover gaskets. First step is to remove this guy here off the top of your valve cover. Set that unit aside. Then you've got to remove your spark plug aligners if you've got them. Same on the other side here, just get that guy. Next you're going to remove your brake booster hose. This is still in the normal up and down position. I like to just loosen that bolt right there and clock it a few degrees to the side. Just makes taking the valve cover off easier. These are steel screws, I believe, going into an aluminum head. So when you take them out, it's okay to use some power tools to make that job faster, but reinstalling them, I like to reach for a manual screwdriver. And usually I use the number 3 Phillips on these. You should have at least one ground that goes valve cover to firewall here. If you don't, just feel free to install one. If you don't have one, you should, and adding one's not going to hurt anything. Now is a good time to retorque your head bolts or check your valve clearances depending on whether your engine's warm or cold. I made a video on both of those, so feel free to check those out. It can be a little bit difficult to get it around this throttle cable here, so you might have to work that a little bit. If you loosen this guy here or don't have one, if you loosen this guy here or don't have one, it's really easy, but I would avoid loosening those bolts because those are torquing your intake manifold gasket, so don't take this off. I'd rather loosen this one up a little bit, but you can work it out around that. And it's also a great time to inspect your engine, see how clean it is, and scrub off your valve cover and take a peek down in there and check out the status of your tensioner as well. When I'm inspecting this chain here, it's kind of hard to see down there through the camera lens, but there's a couple of things I'm looking for. I want to look and make sure that the guides aren't visibly broken. They're plastic units on each side, so they can break and fall down in there. I'm looking for excessive wear. The guides will actually get thin, and I'm looking to see if that tensioner spring is still putting tension on the chain. And all of that looks good to me, so I'm gonna say this chain's good for a few more miles. A lot of people really like to paint their valve covers, shiny colors and stuff. I really like the factory stickers, and the paint's okay on this one, so I just like to give them a quick scrub off while they're removed. A lot of people tend to think that you need to stick a bolt in here to keep outside air from entering your engine and creating nasty acid in your engine oil. But as you can see, there's no holes on the back side, so you're good to go. You don't need those bolts. They're not hurting anything, but if you have them and you don't want them, there's no holes on the underside here, so you don't need them. It's now time to remove the old gasket. Sometimes they can get really stuck in there if they're old, or they can get crusty and just break. And see, this one's been a little bit compressed compared to the new one. It's shorter and it's also harder. The new one's nice and flexible. I always like to just run a rag around the edge here, kind of clean things up a little bit. If you have a little buildup in the top here, just go ahead and wipe it out. It's a great way to help remove some of the deposits that might be swimming around in your engine oil. Now you've got that cleaned out a little bit, you're going to take your new one and install it. In my case, the new one's actually thicker than the old one just because the old one is compressed. It only fits on one way, and the rounder side is going to go towards the cylinder head. You want to try and get these screw holes lined up as best you can, because the machine screws can be a little bit difficult to get in if the holes aren't lined up. And yeah, it should just clip in a little bit there. This one's actually got a spot where the screw hole didn't get completely cleared out in the manufacturing, so we're going to go ahead and just clean that up really quick. Make sure and check that all of the screws holes are clear for the machine screws to pass through, otherwise you won't be able to get one through. Next up, you're gonna remove these moons. Make sure and not drop them down inside your timing cover. I've taken apart engines and seen these swimming around in the oil pans. They haven't hurt anything. There's a screen on the pickup tube that'll keep these from getting sucked into your crankcase, but I like to just not have them down there at all. Those will have to get compressed a little bit, so they're gonna stick up. And when you're reinstalling, you gotta watch these little half circles don't get away on you. And after you're done installing, you wanna double check and make sure they're both still there. After you get your valve cover set down in place, lift it up just a little bit and verify with your fingers that you can feel the gasket is lining up okay down there. Sometimes they'll get peeled back and tucked over. You want to make sure that does not happen. Now you're going to reach for that regular screwdriver and you're going to install these guys. Sometimes the little rubber washers will get pulled down about halfway. Just go ahead and give them a couple cranks and they'll line right up and you can turn that screw in. I like to install the middle ones first, kind of like a head gasket, and move towards the edges. That's not necessary, but I do it just out of good practice. The torque spec on these is just not too tight, so don't go overboard. Now I'm just going to tighten them down a little bit more. All we're trying to do is put a little pressure on that rubber, so you don't have to make it very tight. Reattach our spark plug wire organizers. You're just going to reinstall your vent here. So the vacuum line here for the brake booster has gotten a little damaged in places and it's cracked on the end here, so got a little bit of vacuum leak going on there, so I'm just going to replace that with some new hose after doing that valve cover gasket and we should be ready to go again. Because I'm running a Weber carb, I don't really need this vacuum distribution right here, so we're just going to swap that over for just straight hose. Where the hose runs past the clampy widget, it has potential to be a high friction area. Just gonna put a little bit of extra hose around it, create kind of a friction buffer. As you can see, got a little bit of extra hose in there. Just gonna screw it into the firewall with the factory mount. Ready to go and better than new. I'm gonna run a little bit of stainless safety wire on these, just like a race bike. A lot of people say you don't need to put anything on a vacuum line, but I like to run a little something just extra security. See, that's absolutely mint right there. Perfect. And this stuff is stainless, so rust shouldn't be an issue. Here we we got our new valve cover gasket installed, our new half circles. Both of them made it in okay. Got a new brake booster vacuum line there and a little bit of friction prevention going on there. Make sure you don't forget to attach this wire again here. Just need something, either a zip tie or a little factory guy works fine. And we got a little bit of stainless steel aircraft grade safety wire going on here to keep those on there for a good long time. So that you should be ready to go.